Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would make them from time to time. Short, straightforward, because otherwise people will get bored. So the ulama, that's why they say we have to choose the right moment for maw'idah. People, they are there, they want to eat, they are here to celebrate marriage, and I'm going to take a microphone and I'm going to talk for an hour and a half and to talk about the situation of the ummah, how it's very bad, and to talk about, and how people, they don't fear Allah Azza wa Jal, and talk about the akhirah, and go on. People, they are just there. Therefore, it's a different occasion. لِكُلِّ مَقَامٍ مَقَامٍ. Every situation has a specific message that is more suitable to it. So now, if we go again to the conditions of marriage, the conditions of the aqd, we said we have the two components or we have the two sides, the two parties here. طرفي العقد, to be more specific. So we have the husband or the future husband, and we have the guardian, the wali. Or they can also have a representative. That's also valid. We call this a tawkeel. So what is a tawkeel? Her father is in Malaysia. He's not here. And you want to get married to her. You spoke to her father over the phone. And he said yes, and he's okay with it, alhamdulillah. Her father cannot come here. Maybe the trip is expensive, maybe there's COVID restrictions and people cannot fly, whatever. What does he do? He's going to make tawkeel. He's going to call his best friend who lives here in the same city. And he's going to tell him, I give you the permission to go do the contract on my behalf for my daughter. Or you can do the tawkeel as well. You can tell your father, your brother, you can tell him, can you go do the contract for me? For a reason or another, you cannot attend, you cannot be there, you cannot be present. So that's completely valid, there's no doubt about it, alhamdulillah. Then we have al-ijab wal-qabul. What's ijab wal-qabul? That's the formula, the wording of marriage. You see, marriage is not complicated in Islam. Marriage is serious, but it's not complicated. In Islam, not that we don't. Allah Azza wa Jalla did not put, emphasis on the shakliyat, on the packaging, that has to be something super, like a big ceremony, complicated things. No, the seriousness is about what? The matter itself, about the life of marriage and how we respect each other's rights and obligations. That's where the big deal is, because the contract itself, وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا, it's a heavy contract. So what is ijab wal qabul? It's as simple as the future husband saying, زَوِّجْنِي إِبْنَتَكَ فُلَانًا, give me for marriage your daughter XYZ, mentions her name. And he says, قَبِلْتُ, or زَوَّجْتُكَ إِبْنَتِي فُلَانًا, I give you my daughter XYZ for marriage. Once they say this, ijab and qabul, there's an offer and what? A response, an approval on the other side. There's a request and then there's the answer. They are married. As long as we have here conditions. There are conditions, of course. First of all, they say the ulama, there are some ulama that are very strict. They say it has to be in Arabic, okay? But in reality, that's not the valid opinion. So any wording, even with a different language, as long as both parties, they can understand clearly what this is about, and that it's clear that this is about marriage, يفهمان الخطاب, and it's clear that it means give me your daughter for marriage. That's number one. Number two, another condition, as we said, تدل على التنجيز. It has to be right away. Give me your daughter fulana for marriage starting next year. Yes, I accept. No, doesn't work. It has to be like right now. Yes, we are getting married now. Another condition, as we said before, يدل على التأبيد. It has to be open, not like give me your daughter fulana for marriage. We're going to get married for 1 year. That's, we said before, this is zawaj al-mut'a, and it's batil. It's completely unacceptable. Also, it has to be tatabuq. What's tatabuq? Full synchronization, full equivalence between the offer and the response. If he says, give me your daughter Aisha for marriage, he says, I gave you my daughter Fatima for marriage. No, they're not married. Okay, there's a misconfiguration here. Or also sometimes there's ibham. What's ibham? It's too vague. He has 3 daughters and he says, give me your daughter for marriage. And he says, I gave you my daughter for marriage. But they didn't specify which one. So also that doesn't work. So it has to be very clear, very straightforward, very simple. Now people, they think often that you need to have an imam to do marriage. Is that real? Is that true? Not true at all. Okay, so people, the problem is that first of all, people sometimes they spend a lot of money because some imams, yeah, give me a $500, give me $1,000, and now will come. That's for one. Or sometimes there are imams who don't ask for money, but it's just like too much work for imam. Every time come imam come. Of course, if you are unsure, that's not a requirement. But if you are unsure, you want to make sure, you don't know how to do marriage exactly, you just want to have him just to make sure that we are doing it the right way, that's a different story. But people need to understand that it's not required to have an imam to be able to perform a marriage. As long as you know how to do it, how to do things, alhamdulillah, you can do it yourself directly. And we have, of course, the components who are the future husband and the future wife. There are conditions that should be very obvious. We're not going to detail them too much. Of course, one of the conditions is that they are halal to each other. They can get married to each other. So someone cannot marry one of his maharim. Okay. So there's muharramat min al-nisa. Muharrama min al-nisa is a lady that you can never ever marry. That's ala ta'bid. That's your maharim. Of course, sister, mother, and everything. But also, let's not forget here, birrada. Some women, you cannot marry them because they were fed milk with you. So for example, someone, when he was a baby, him and the daughter of the neighbors both were fed milk, breast milk, by some other lady. Okay, so automatically him and the daughter of the neighbors, they become what? Mahram to each other, and they can never get married. They can never get married. They are maharim to each other. And there are some women that you cannot marry temporarily. Why you cannot marry temporarily? Because, for example, some situations, Naha Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and yujma'a bayna al-mar'ati wa khalatiha wa ammatiha. You cannot marry, afwan? Two sisters, that's in the Quran. أن تجمعوا بين الأختين إلا ما قد سلف. So in the Quran, you cannot marry two sisters at the same time. You cannot marry a girl and her sister at the same time. That's obvious. In the Quran, it's haram. However, her sister, she's not your mahram. Why is she not your mahram? The sister of your wife. Why is she not your mahram?
Because if you divorce your wife, you can marry her.
Because in theory, if you divorce your wife and the iddah is expired, we'll talk about the iddah in a moment, inshallah, or if your wife passes away, in theory you have the right to marry her sister after, if she's single. That's why she's not part of your maharim. Okay, so she's not a mahram. It's just temporarily haram for you to marry her. Also, of course, you cannot marry a lady who's married already. And you cannot marry a lady who is in her iddah. We'll talk in a moment, inshallah, about the iddah. The iddah is a waiting period. It's called the waiting period. Inshallah, we'll talk about that in a moment. You cannot marry her. And also what do we have? We have, as we said in the sunnah, you cannot marry a woman and her aunt at the same time. So her mother's sister or her father's sister. You cannot marry both at the same time. But her amma or her khala, she's not your mahram, because again, it's like her sister. You can marry her later if you're not married anymore to that girl who was initially your wife. And then we have also another form of maharim, who are your mahram bil musahara, through a link of marriage. So not by blood. One example here is your mother-in-law. Believe it or not, your mother-in-law, she's your mahram, meaning she's your mahram forever. And your mother-in-law, she's your mahram the moment you do the aqd, you do the contract, khalas. So if you marry a girl, the moment you do the aqd, even if you divorce her 10 minutes after, okay, you never consumed the marriage, whatever, her mom, she's your mahram forever, for the rest of your life or her life. She's your mahram. You can never marry her. She's one of your maharim, just like your own mother. She is a mahram to you. So you have to make sure both parties here, the man and the woman, they can be married. There's nothing that prevents them from being married. This we have to make sure, obviously, which should be the case, inshallah, in most cases. Then we have the wali. We spoke about the wali here. Let's talk about the wali again, the guardian. Why did Allah Azza wa Jal impose a wali in marriage? Why does, of course, the man, the husband doesn't need the wali. Okay, the future husband, he doesn't need the wali. Some people, they say, my father does not want me to get married to that girl. Your father is not required for the validity of the marriage. Now there's a different story, which is birrul walidain. You want to please your father if possible. If he's not asked, إنما الطاعة في المعروف. If he's not asking you something that's hardship, that doesn't, really doesn't make sense, because ta'atul walidain, obedience to parents in Islam, has conditions. It's in the ma'ruf. So first of all, it shouldn't be something that's haram. So if your parents are telling you to do something haram, you don't obey them. And also the ulama, they say you don't have to obey your parents if they are asking you to do something that's harmful to you and that they don't really need. It's not helping them at all. So if there's something that's harmful to you, but that's really your parents really need it, they really, like they're desperate for it, then yes, in many situations you have to obey your parents. Like let's say you have to defend your parents physically. Maybe that's dangerous to you, but it's your parents. You're not gonna let your parents face what? Face harm. But some situations in which that's unfortunately quite common nowadays for people who don't fear Allah Azza wa Jal, and that's very serious. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will ask them on the Day of Judgment. Some parents, they ask their children to do some things that are not beneficial to them, to the parents, and that are harmful to the children. I don't have great benefit in asking you what I'm asking you, and it's bad for you. But you know what? I'm your father. I just feel like telling you to do this. Like if someone, the ulama, they talk about, what if your mom, she says, divorce your wife? Why should I divorce you? I'm giving you the order. Divorce your wife. Right? So why? I don't like her. Divorce her. So Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, ulama, they say you don't have to obey your mother in these situations, right? Unless there's something really bad about your wife, that in Islam you should not stay with a wife like this, and your mother, she's just, putting more emphasis on you, she's making it more serious here. That's a different story. But your mom says, I don't like your wife, divorce her. You don't have to obey. You don't have to obey your mom. So here, as we said, the future husband, the man in Islam, does not have a guardian per se, does not have a wali. Wali is on the lady, is on the future wife. Why did Allah Azza wa Jal put this in Islam? So some people, they say, no, this is bad, for freedom of women. They should be independent. She doesn't need her father to get married. No problem. Go do it outside Islam. Just don't claim to be a Muslim. That's it. But if you claim to be a Muslim, that you follow Allah and His Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, you follow the orders of Allah Azza wa Jal, and you follow His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that's what Islam says. But why did Allah Azza wa Jal put this in the Shara? La nikaha illa biwali. What's the reasoning behind it? There's always reasoning. There's hikmah, there's illah. Either sometimes we know, there are reasons that we know, there are reasons that we don't know. Allah Azza wa Jal knows. Why?
For the protection of the girl?
So first of all, the protection of the girl, okay? So a girl can never ever, at least in Islam, I'm not saying about a girl who doesn't respect the iffah and the haya and the modesty and the hijab and everything. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Muslim sister who is a sister, like she respects the concept of al-haya, the iffah and hijab and basically the opposite of at-tabarruj and so on and so forth. She can never ever, impossible for her to know the nature of that man by herself, the one that she is about to marry. But her father, for example, or her brother, any guardian, any trustworthy wali from her family, okay, she wants to marry a brother who prays in this masjid. He's going to investigate. He's going to come to this masjid, pray behind him. They're going to see from far. He's going to look at him. How does he interact with people, right? He's going to go out and talk to him, take coffee with him, maybe have a small trip with him, right? He's going to test his emotions, try to anger him a little bit. So a man can do this. He's going to talk to his other friends, right? A man can do this. You can get into his inner circle to know, is this, the man really my daughter thinks he is, or he has some other things. That's number one. Number two also, there's another maqsad which is very important here, is that in Islam, marriage is not just a personal thing. That's very important. In Islam, marriage is not fully a personal thing. We have the concept of al-rahim, of al-musahara. When a girl gets married, this is involving the whole family on the long run. what happens, for example, if she marries a guy, he turns out to be the wrong person, someone crazy, you know? And the first year, after 2 years like this, she didn't really know fully. She was still, you know, given husnul dhan, maybe he's gonna change, maybe. Now they have a kid together. But then she realizes this man is not a normal person, right? Very violent, he takes drugs, or who cares? And it ends up with divorce. Or maybe he's a good person, but he divorces her. Where does she go now? With her child. Goes back to her parents' house, knocks the door. What if the wali was not involved? There's no father was not involved at all. She knocks at the door. What? You bringing me now a child? If you think I'm going to take care of you, go get your own life and do your own thing, right? Why? Like you took the decision. Of course, according to the westernized lifestyle, this works. Okay, no problem. She's a single mom. She can go get a job, get an apartment, live and everything. That's according to another system. That's why we say in Islam, either you accept the system, you live by it, or because if you're gonna, split it, take portions of it, it's just not gonna work. It's not gonna make sense. You're not getting the full image, the full story here. So in Islam, if your daughter is divorced, you don't tell her, go get your own living, go find a way to live. No, she comes back to the family and her father has the obligation to do nafaqah on her, to spend on her, and so on and so forth. So that's why in Islam, if she is divorced, well, she goes back to her parents' house, and she's going to tell her father is not going to deny her. Her uncle cannot deny her. She's going to tell them, you made the aqd, not me. Yes, I was interested in him, but who made the aqd? Who got us married? It's you. You made the aqd because you're taraf. You said qabiltu. You said I accept. Deal with the consequences right now. There's nothing wrong with it. So there are many reasons. Wallahu azza wa jalla ya'lam wa antum la ta'lamun. Now there are situations, as we said, please tell me inshallah when it's time to do so.
There's 4 minutes until the adhan.
4 minutes until adhan, inshallah. Okay, so we'll just conclude with the guardian, then we'll leave the rest for after Dhuhr, inshallah. Okay? So, by the way, inshallah, if you have any questions, inshallah, the second session, inshallah, azza wa jal, because this is a topic that loves questions. Okay, the more questions we have, the more practical it can get, inshallah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the guardian, as we said, by default it's the father. But there are other people who can be guardian. If the father is not there, it can be her brother. It can be her uncle from her father's side, not from her mother's side. So always the wali has to be from the father's side. Okay, this is related to the whole system because it has implications on inheritance and so on and so forth. So it can be her uncle from her father's side. It can be her grandfather, again, the father of her father. It can be her son, maybe a lady, she's 60, she's 70 years old, and she's a widow, she wants to get married. Her son can be her wali, there's nothing wrong with that. And by the way, there's nothing wrong in Islam with a woman who is divorced, or she's a widow and she wants to get married. There's nothing wrong with that in Islam, nothing wrong with that at all. And the ulama, subhanAllah, last time I was listening to one of the ulama, he said that's one of the forms of the worst uquq, of disobedience and being unrespectful toward your own mother, is that in some families, if the father passes away and then his wife wants to get married after her iddah, and then the kids, the children, they will say, no, you can't get married, you have to be loyal to our father, he passed away. That's a uquq, the ulama, they said. He said that's a very nasty thing to do. One last point, inshallah, before the adhan. There is a situation called adlul wali. What is adlul wali? Adl of the wali, the guardian in Islam, when we say in Islam the guardian is required, it doesn't mean that he does whatever he wants. He has a specific role. His role is to make sure that there is the kafa'a, that there are situations where the wali can say no to his daughter. She says, I want to marry this man. In some situations, the wali can say no. That's when there is no kafa'a. He believes, he has strong elements to believe this is not a good man. Why is he not a good man? Why is he not a good husband for my wife, for my daughter? It goes back to what we were saying before. It's either mainly ad-deenu wa al-khuluq, his religion or his character. So she comes to him, she says, my father, I want to marry that man, that person. He goes, investigates and everything, and he says no. Why no? he's a drug addict, he drinks alcohol, he has clearly haram business, all his income is from riba, he's a fasiq, he doesn't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he eats Ramadan, he doesn't fast Ramadan, okay? No, but I love him. I'm not getting you married to that. That's the right of, that's not just the right, that's the obligation of the guardian in Islam. He can say no. Or his character, his akhlaq is very bad. People, they tell him at the masjid, oh, that man, is a very violent man, very aggressive, he has a very filthy mouth, always insulting. I'm not giving my daughter to that man. And she said, no, I love him. No. Why no? Because it's not just like, he's not making the decision for, it's his role actually, as a guardian, as a wali. But if the wali now, the guardian, either he does not want his daughter to get married at all. Unfortunately, imagine this, even in this day and age, even in Canada, there are some fathers that they tell their own daughters, go out, go study, go to university, go get a job, and then she says, I want to get married, don't you dare talk to me about marriage. Don't you dare talk to me about marriage. You're too young for this. Go finish your studies, go get a career, go. A'udhu billahi ta'ala. This is called what? Adl. It's called adl. Adl meaning his saying no for no valid reason. In this situation, either first of all, we talk to him, try to explain to him, Akhi, you can't do this, it's wrong. So normally in Islam, the problem nowadays, see, with all these situations that we don't have qada shar'i, the court or the judge that rules by Islam. Because normally in Islam, we don't have to cover this in a dars like this. If you have a problem, she can go see the qadi, she can go complain to the qadi. She can tell the qadi, I want to get married, I found a good brother, my father does not want. So the qadi is going to say, come, father, I need to talk to you. And he's going to listen to his version. Maybe there's more to the story, maybe there's not. So if he is a adil, he does not want to let her get married at all, or adil, they say the ulama, he said no because of something completely irrelevant. Why I can't get married to him? Or because he doesn't have a very fancy car, so I want someone. That's called the adl. It's irrelevant, it's not a valid excuse. Or the ulama, they say also, if her father is so difficult, is so complicated, that every time somebody knocks on the door, they're being rejected, and to a certain point that people they don't even dare coming to her because they know this father, just don't try. So this is called what? Al-adl. When al-adl happens, what do? It moves to the next wali. So in theory, in fiqh, they have a whole hierarchy of the awliya. It's either this, if not then this, if not then this. Practically speaking, there's a very nice opinion of Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, who says that this is not practical, especially nowadays. Because nowadays, if the father says no, most people usually they don't want family problems. She's gonna talk to her uncle, yeah, I would like to help you, but I don't want problems with my brother. She's gonna talk to her brother, yeah, I would like to help you, I don't want problems with my father. So nowadays people, they're not brave to face the consequences, to do the haqq and to say the haqq and to give nasiha. So Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he says, either if there's any of the awliya who's ready to assume, to come forward, then he's going to become the wali. Now what if none of these awliya apply? Then Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he says, we go to the last resort right away. We're not going to spend a year knocking at every door of every possible wali to see if he accepts. We're just going to go to the last resort. What is the last resort? Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam said, فَإِنْ اشْتَجَرُوا فَالسُّلْطَانُ وَلِيُّ مَنْ لَا وَلِيَّ لَهُ. If they disagree, the awliya, or if she has no guardian, like convert sisters, they have no wali, okay? Or for a reason or another, all the awliya, they're unreachable. Or there's adl, as we said, the father doesn't want to, and nobody wants to help her. Then in Islam, we go to the authority. Who is the authority? It's the sultan, meaning the khalifa, or anyone from the system itself. So it would be the qadi, going to the qadi. Now the same problem here we have is what? We don't have qadi shar'i. Okay, see how many of the problems, family problems, are because of this matter, that we don't have sharia being implemented, we don't have qada, so there's no enforcement, nobody with the power to say that's the way it works in Islam, and you better listen. We don't have that. So the ulama, what did they say? They said nowadays in the West, for example, where there's no qada shar'i, who's going to become the wali of this mar'a? It's anyone with a status in the Muslim community. Like an imam, for example, meaning someone that people they look up to, they respect, and someone who knows the religion. Which doesn't mean, by the way, and I'll conclude at this point inshallah, which doesn't mean that it's like some imams they think like they're just like the wali by default, like any girl comes to knock at his office, yeah sure, come, we'll do the marriage right now. That's not the way you do it. So you can't just like, skip the wali as easy as that. So if a girl, she comes and knocks and talks to the imam, and she says, my father does not want me to get married, the imam should do his best to try to meet the father, to try to listen to him, what's going on. Maybe he has his own reasons, there's more to the story, or maybe he could convince him, because that's always the best. If you convince the father, inshallah, even maybe it's gonna be bitter for him, but he's gonna accept to do it, then that's always better. But as a last resort, if really this girl is being prevented from her right of being married, then yes, here in the West, the imam can perform the marriage. Inshallah Azza wa Jal, we will stop for the adhan and the salat, and then we will resume right after, inshallah. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.